David Jones. I'm a resident of Guntersville, have lived in Guntersville a good part of my life and spent my summers on the Tennessee River and developed a real interest in the early navigation of the river, the old steamboats prior to TVA, etc. Structurally speaking, the Tennessee River, it starts at the concurrence of the Holston and the French Broad River just a few miles north of Knoxville, Tennessee. It has a course of 652 miles and ends at Paducah, Kentucky, and becomes a part of the Ohio River about 60 miles before the Ohio concurs with the Mississippi. The earliest use of the Tennessee was, of course, by the Indians. The French if you look at some old French maps, the French referred to it as the River of the Cherokees. And it was originally, the first people to come up the river were French traders up from New Orleans, and then British traders started coming over the Appalachians and coming down the tributaries of the Tennessee River and trading. And French started in the early 1600s, and this trading went on for quite some time. The first real attempt to try to navigate the Tennessee River to settle further west, and this is a very famous trip, was the Donelson Party. And this was the group that founded Nashville. They built flatboats and came down the Tennessee and were attacked right around Moccasin Bend by the Cherokees. And fortunately had a swift current, and they all got away except the last boat. And the last boat was the smallpox boat. And they could hear them screaming as the Indians were attacking them, but I guess the joke was on the Indians because they got smallpox. But that boat didn't make it through. But these people followed the current down to Paducah, then poled up the Ohio, up the Cumberland, to where Nashville is today. And Nashville was sited there because there was a huge salt lick in Nashville, and of course the Cumberland River. But people don't realize that the founders of Nashville came through Guntersville on their way to Nashville. Early on, the Tennessee River was not a good navigation river for two reasons. The area south of Moccasin Bend in Chattanooga on the Walden's Mountain, where the river cut through the mountain. It was more like a whitewater type of river there, and there were several areas of great difficulty to pass. One was nicknamed the Boiling Pot, one was the Pan, one was the Tumbling Shoals, but the big one was called the Suck. And it was a real problem to get up, and it was a real problem to get down. You think of farmers trying to get their product to market from the Tennessee Valley, it was a problem. And Muscle Shoals was the biggest problem. If the water was too shallow, you couldn't get across it, and you'd just have to land your boat and wait for some rain and wait for the water to come high enough where you could float over the shoals. And in this case, you're running whitewater, so it wasn't an easy thing to do. Some people would hire people to run their boat through the shoals that were familiar with it. Those things created navigation impairments that became the product of a lot of federal government work down the road. In 1913, a private company built a dam across the Tennessee River in Tennessee, right before you get into Alabama. It was called Hell's Bar Dam. And you can still see remnants of Hell's Bar Dam if you go upriver now. The powerhouse is still there and the lock is still there. And it was the first dam across a major river in the United States. At its time, it had some of the highest electrical generation technology that you could buy. It was the highest lift of the lock was the highest lift of any lift in the country, and it was quite a remarkable project in its time. And it had a distribution system of 18 miles to Chattanooga, and that's what fueled Chattanooga's growth. Now, the dam didn't generate a lot of electricity in a drought, so they ended up building a steam plant next to the dam to supplement the hydro with steam. When TVA came along, they bought Hales Bar Dam and made it taller, but it leaked. They never could fix the leak, so they tore it down and built Nickajack Dam. So you've got, by 1913, you've got the suck taken care of. Hales Bar Dam elevated the water to get you slack water all the way to Chattanooga. And the second canal took care of the navigation. I mean, really one of the interesting things of the second canal, to keep the Elk River from flooding the canal with sediment like it did the first canal, they built an aqueduct, a bridge over the Elk River that was filled with water, and the steamboats would go over the Elk River and were pulled by a little small engine. You know, by 1913, you know, we've got steamboats traveling the river pretty consistently. We divide the Tennessee River in the upper and the lower Tennessee at Decatur. Decatur's at the top of Muscle Shoals. If it's above Muscle Shoals, it's the upper Tennessee. If it's below, it's the lower. And there's an interesting book written by T.J. Campbell called The Upper Tennessee. He was a steamboat pilot on the Upper Tennessee and tells some wonderful stories. That book's in the library here in the Rare Book Room, but it's a great read. 1927, there was a horrible flood. Not just the Tennessee River, but the whole Mississippi River basin flooded. And at that time, Congress realized that if they were going to control the Mississippi, they're going to have to control the Tennessee and the Ohio and the Missouri and the Arkansas. So they put together a unified development plan for the rivers. And the first drawing I've ever seen, engineered drawing of Guntersville Dam, was drawn by Corps of Engineers, not by TVA. So in 27, the Corps was established with putting a system of dams in on all the tributaries of the Mississippi River, Tennessee included. The Muscle Shoals had a tremendous effect on the Civil War and Guntersville's part in the Civil War. Since we were above Muscle Shoals, we were in the upper Tennessee, and the federal gunboats could not get up above the shoals. They took the lower Tennessee early in the war. In 1862, they took over Fort Donelson that was on the Tennessee near Paducah, and they controlled the Tennessee River, the lower Tennessee, throughout the war. As a matter of fact, the Battle of Shiloh, which was the first really major battle where thousands and thousands of people were killed, the Federals brought their reinforcements in by steamboat. The train came to Guntersville in 1892, and there was originally the plan to build a bridge across the Tennessee River for the rail, but that became too expensive. So they created a rail transfer. They put rail cars on barges here in Guntersville, transferred them downriver 27 miles to Ditto, put them back on tracks in Ditto, and went up to Huntsville and to Nashville that way. And that continued on until 1959.